Welcome to the Salty Driftwood Podcast. I'm your host, Eugene Gibson, and in today's episode, we'll try to answer the question, can we mitigate climate change? First off, I'd like to extend my thoughts and prayers to the brothers and sisters in the nation of Tonga who just experienced underwater a serious volcanic eruption. From the picture, it looked like a nuclear testing or something like that. Like, wow. And we're basically just getting news coming out from that area as all the communications were down. They are indeed in my prayers, and I hope that they will be in yours. Which leads me right into talk about climate change. Being from a nation as Tonga, archipelagic nation made up of small islands. Climate change is a serious issue, especially for nations like ours, like the Bahamas, where we projected that there will be a substantial sea rise in perhaps the next 8 to 10 years, or perhaps even sooner. And with that, also living in the hurricane belt, I've witnessed and seen over the years the increased devastation of hurricanes by actually being in one and seeing the effect of the last one, the immediate effect of the last one, Hurricane Dorian, on the island of Abaco. And I saw the devastation there, and I never witnessed anything like that in my life. Been living in this country all my life, saw storms and hurricanes, been to other islands where hurricanes have passed through, and never witnessed nothing like that in my life. And hearing the stories, it's like, this, you say once in a millennium type event, sort of like the volcanic eruption in Tonga. But as we can see, the weather's getting more severe, the winters are getting colder, the summers are getting hotter. There are tornadoes everywhere. There was that was last year in St. Vincent. It was the volcanic eruption, and so we've seen all these things right before our eyes. Now it could be, we equate climate change to human effect with our use and dependency on fossil fuels and the climate heating gases that are produced after their use. So what we're doing is making the planet hotter, and the planet has to do what it has to do to survive. One of the things they say hurricanes are for in nature is to remove heat from the oceans. That's one of the natural effects of hurricanes. So if the planet sees fit, hey, you gotta do what it gotta do, and we just happen to be in the way. But I say that to say all this. As of recent, they just had the COP26. I don't know if it's pronounced COP, but the climate summit, and I think it was Glasgow, where leaders got together and they made these what they call them, agreements, because they wasn't really treaties, and they're self-enforced, or you do them yourself, whatever nation see fit to do them, and they made these different I'll put a task that each nation they need to do, or what they need to be done, so that we can reduce emissions and things of the sort. And really and truly, it seemed just to be a photo op after all these lockdowns and restrictions, and leaders could get together and a little entertainment. But there were a lot of protests surrounding that, which no one really saw. We just saw the leaders taking pictures, and it was quite surprising. We had some small island nations who made some nice speeches, and to bring attention to what's going on. But in reality, what next? After that, what next? What is next for our environment? What is next for the climate? What is next for human population, human civilization as it is, the state as it is in today? What's next? Definitely nature gonna do what nature does. And that is the nature. That's right. That's the nature, the be nature. That's what nature going to do. So what is it that we can do? Can we really mitigate climate change? Is it really too late? Or like most things, when things seem far off we don't really worry about it until it gets on our doorstep. Because why I ask this, right? Most of the challenges, global challenges that we face, usually some solution comes about because somehow it's been incentivized to solve the problem. Take, for instance, just as recent, we can look at the pandemic and the vaccine production. It wasn't until the U.S. administration put forth Operation Warp Speed that really vaccinations were warp speed into production. So they were incentivized to the tune of like $11 billion for the top pharmaceutical companies to come forward with a vaccine, and it was done. So what do we have to incentivize to mitigate the drastic effects of climate change? What do we have? I mean, we also have these space programs. NASA's on the last Mars probe or Mars expedition, they spent up to $2 billion, and the expedition usually takes going and coming back, like, if you could, but 2 years if it come back, because I don't think they plan for it, the rover or whatever they call it, the vehicle to come back. So that's like a year to get there, and that's $2 billion just there. The meantime, they're researching and doing tests, Then you have the International Space Station sitting up there now with private contractors acting as transport. They're talking about space tourism and all that. And that's just the U.S. Just on one mission spent $2 billion. Other countries have space programs: China, Russia, India, North Korea, because North Korea mostly using it for weapon production, but still, these still huge sums of money to explore space. So they say they're looking for a habitable planet, which I think that may be a long-term goal, but I think the short-term goal is that they're looking for other resources to exploit. I think I said that before earlier in one of my other podcasts, because the galaxy and the universe is filled with precious metals such as gold and other metals that the general public, only think of like gold and silver and platinum, but there are other metals that are quite precious on this planet because of industry. Certain industries need these certain metals, and they've become actually high priced commodities over the years. So their real intention, what I believe, is to exploit space in that manner. They say an asteroid alone could have trillions of dollars worth of precious metals and stuff, and who knows, even precious gases or whatever. So space exploration, even though they're spending the money, they're incentivized to do it. So like I say once again, people respond to incentives. The incentive for us should be, this is where we live, we destroying our habitat. But apparently that is not, I hate to say it, apparently it's not a good enough incentive, because they spending billions and trillions and billions of dollars to do these other things. Why can't they do the same to try figure out a way that we could mitigate climate change? Have human beings become that, I wouldn't say less intelligent than they were before, that we can't figure out ways, practical ways? They say there are ways such as paying less on fossil fuels, renewable energy, retrofitting buildings and to make them more efficient, to use mass public transportation. Those are more like broad things. And they're like obvious if you do those things. But what are some of the practical ways we could do collectively that we could get together and we could do to mitigate climate change? Because I believe we could do it, but I just don't believe we've been incentivized to do it. And that's what needs to happen. It's all right. The gloom and dome is there. Like I say, we should be incentivized because this is where we live. We're destroying where we live, and those around, those things and living things in it, we're destroying. But like I say, apparently that's because we don't see it now. We just see like this nation experience it. This nation experience it on another side of the world. This happening, this tornado happening here, this flooding happening here. So we seeing it in sports. So it ain't like, say like for instance, how this pandemic came all global all at once. Everyone's attention was focused on it. So something had to be done. That's the problem with climate change. It's spiraling here and there because that's how nature operates. It doesn't do everything one time. It does as changes occur. So collectively, we talk about it. It's in our minds, but can we really do things to mitigate it? Like I said, I don't think we're really incentivized to do it, and I think that should be the more practical approach. I mean, I heard them talk about, I still don't understand them, but these carbon credits, and the only two stories I heard about these carbon credits for companies is one, when they first happened, there were some Frenchmen who figured out a way, by withholding taxes, they became millionaires and they were scamming the system. And two, another tech billionaire used those credits to boost up his company, company valuation. So his carbon credit sort of propped up his valuation. So the company seems to be more profitable, not on what it's producing, but actually basically accounting. So to me, carbon credits is just like a accounting to me, if you really ask me. And I don't really see how. I guess there's some long-term strategy involved, but from what I read and understand, there really isn't. They've only incentivized companies to try to do something. And then we have something interesting the other day that China said they created an artificial sun, which was, I can't remember the number, greater than the sun. And they claim that is their way of helping to mitigate the effects of climate change, in that the sun basically is a natural nuclear fusion reactor, turning hydrogen into helium, and that conversion of mass producing large sums of energy, which is galactic sums of energy for us. So they claim that's what they're doing, but who knows what they're doing? Because the same way you have nuclear fission for weapons, it's safe to assume you could have nuclear fusion for weapons. Problem with nuclear fusion is it's really hard to replicate. So that's why the sun is unique. That's another thing. We just sent a probe. I don't know, I wouldn't say just sent, but a probe just reached the sun and took pictures of the surface of the sun. And I don't know if some of y'all was reading about the sun. They say the sun dying. I mean, ain't not much we could do, but that, I don't know how much effect humans have on that. But that's another thing we should be concerned about. I mean, not to say like being a fairmonger or anything, but it is what it is. Then we have something natural, apparently the pole shifting, the magnetic fields of the pole shifting. And there was actually a shift of the poles, I think they said would cause the Sahara to become a desert. So not only what we doing, it's going to affect us in the next couple of years. It's what naturally is going to happen is going to affect us in the next couple of years. And I mean, there's so much going on, especially like things like global poverty and things like that, the inequality, which in my opinion, nothing will really ever be equal. But there's so much other things going on. So I don't really think we taking this as serious as we should. Because there are some who says it isn't as serious as it is, and some who sometimes people have good intentions, but they go about it in the wrong way. And when you find out that they were giving you misinformation to scare you into believing, which is probably facts, people sort of get turned off, and then you don't get the support. I mean, do you really need the support? Because this really for us, this for our habitat. But like I say, humans need to respond to incentives. So I think the only way we can mitigate this climate change is we have to figure out practical ways that we can have incentives for the collective to do some of the things necessary to mitigate these change, to reduce these CO2 emissions and such. So for me, that's the only thing I could think about. Like I said, I really don't know how serious we're taking it, because it seems so far off, but every day, just a bit more frequently now, we're hearing more and more and more of these adverse weather effects. It's with affecting human life. We're having loss of human life, loss of wildlife, loss of, people might say it ain't important, but loss of property when people lose their homes. I mean, for some, that's they basically holding on to their shelters and their homes and stuff. The rising sea level. one of the things I think should happen is small island nations and such should really form their own like climate grouping together and approach such things as these other international organizations, and not just the nations, the coastal cities who will also be adversely affected. They need to form coalitions together because that's the only way you do it collectively to force these major companies, mostly major companies who are doing most of the damage. Human beings, we can always do our parts. Animals can always do their part towards it. But these large corporations running unchecked, polluting the rivers, the environment. You mean to tell me now, after all these years, we know what CO2 does. And after we have all these companies making all these billions and billions, and one person alone, almost a trillionaire, they couldn't figure out ways to reduce their CO2 emissions? Come on, man. Come on, man. They aren't doing it because either they are not incentivized or they are not severely punished enough. I don't really know how you could do that because fines and things don't seem to make no difference to them because they figure I pay a fine and I could just make 4 times as more than fines once I keep running. So either they aren't incentivized enough or they aren't punished enough, because that's another thing people just respond to, punishment, rewards and punishment. So I think we just ain't taking it serious enough, and we should, and it shouldn't just be small island nation, coastal cities, because let's say somehow we able to move all the people from the small island nations and the coastal cities and put them in interiors. Now you just know what you just did, the popular density in each of those areas. Now you know what the more problems you can cause. So all we doing is, if we don't do it now, we be even creating even more problems than we probably never even think about. Because population density is a serious problem in many cases, in social interactions and health and just sanitation, all those things. Popular density plays a huge effect. So question asked again, finally, can we mitigate climate change? I say yes. But I should have further asked the next question. Are we interested in mitigating climate change? I really don't think so. And I think it's time for us to get up off our polluting butts and try to do something about it. So for me, I guess I'll end with that. Like I always say, be good, be real, and have a good one.